Ladies and gentlemen, we meet once again to discuss another of the most sordid of subjects, about Muhammad, Islam, Muslims and their misdeeds. I watched as many videos of the encounter as possible, both from people who took pictures from the ships, as well as those taken by the Israelis from helicopters and sea vessels. Any unbiased and fair-minded person would see what I saw. Men on the Marmara wielding clubs, metal poles, daggers, slingshots, Molotov cocktails, and other offensive weapons waiting for the Israeli soldiers to land on the ship. The instant these soldiers hit the deck, they were surrounded and attacked by gangs, who were hitting them with everything they could wield in their hands. They threw one or more of the soldiers overboard or to a lower deck. Of course, all this was done in the usual name of peaceful Islam and humanitarian aid. The Israeli commandos had paint guns to defend themselves with. No machine guns, no grenades. Paint guns with sidearm pistols as a last resort. The men who attacked the soldiers took the sidearms of some of them and used them to shoot at the Israelis. The Israelis finally retaliated in self-defense. If the Israelis had truly wanted to use excessive force, their commandos would have been armed to the teeth, and not with paint guns, and hundreds would have been killed. Better still, they would have used helicopter gunships to kill the Hamas supporters, without endangering a single Israeli soldier. 5 of the ships of the flotilla obeyed Israeli instructions and not a single person was hurt. Only on the Marmara, which was the flagship of the flotilla, was primed by the Turkish government to act violently and provoke the Israelis, suffered casualties. I would like any Muhammadan Muslim listening to this chapter to try to refute what I'm revealing, not with insults and the usual threat of physical violence, but with proofs based entirely on facts and reality. The actions of the Islamists on the Marmara should have been anticipated by the Israelis. Unfortunately, they underestimated the willingness of the Turkish fundamentalists on the ship to use violence for political and propaganda purposes, irrespective of the fact that the Turkish organizers had publicly declared that they are on a mission of peace. All of the violence occurred only on board the Turkish ferry Mavi Marmara. All those who were killed were members or volunteers for the Islamic Jihadi group that owns the ship, called the Humanitarian Relief Foundation, IHH. The relationship between Mr. Erdogan's government and the IHH ought to be one focus of any international investigation into the incident. The foundation is a member of a coalition that was formed to provide material support to Hamas, and that was named as a terrorist entity by the United States in 2008. In discussions before the flotilla departed, Turkish officials turned down offers from both Israel and Egypt to deliver the alleged humanitarian supplies on the boats to Gaza, and insisted that Ankara could not control what it described as a non-governmental organization. The IHH has certainly done its best to promote Mr. Erdogan. All the peoples of the Islamic world should want a leader like Recep Tayyip Erdogan. IHH chief Bülent Yildirim proclaimed at a Hamas rally in Gaza last year. Mr. Erdogan seems to share that notion. In the days since an incident that the IHH admits it provoked on his behalf, the Turkish Prime Minister has done his best to compete with Iran's Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and Hezbollah's Hassan Nasrallah in attacking the Jewish state. On the personal level, I am never, and I repeat the word never, surprised at the wanton behavior of Islamists anywhere and everywhere in the world. They are, after all, just emulating the depravities of their mentor, Muhammad, the alleged best male that was ever created, his Quran and his Sunnah. What really shocked me and revolted me is the Western media's frenzy of gang-raping Israel and Israelis, who were only attempting to defend themselves against the terrorist Hamas in Gaza. The Western media exhibited an obscene degree of hypocrisy and mendacity. compounded with a pathological and depraved indifference to facts, reality, morality, justice, fairness, and language. They colluded and continue to collude almost en masse with the very Islamic forces that will utterly destroy them and any democracy under Sharia. They deliberately perverted the explanations of each and every video that clearly showed how the Turks on the Marmara were preparing themselves for a premeditated violent confrontation. Hamas, which is committed to the destruction of Israel and the slaughter of the Jews, is blacklisted in the United States and the European Union as a terrorist group. Yet the Western media totally ignore these facts. As a fundamentalist Muslim movement, Hamas does not harbor hate for the Jews only, but also for all Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, atheists, Zoroastrians, etc. For those of you who believe that Muhammadan Islam is a religion of peace, please tell me how. After listening to a very small sample of the following verses from Muhammad's Quran. Al-Imran 3.19. The religion before Allah is Islam, submission to His will. Al-Imran 3.85. If anyone desires a religion other than Islam, submission to Allah, never will it be accepted of him. And in the hereafter, he will be in the ranks of those who have lost. Al-Ma'idah 5.51. O ye who believe, take not the Jews, Yahud, and the Christians, Nasara, for your friends and protectors. They are but friends and protectors to each other. And any who amongst you that turns to them for friendship is of them. Al-Tawbah 9.29. Fight, qatilu, those who believe not in Allah nor the last day, nor hold that forbidden which had been forbidden by Allah and His Apostle, nor acknowledge the religion of truth, that is Islam, even if they are of the people of the book, until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves humiliated. Al-Tawbah 9.73. O Prophet, strive hard, jahidi, against the unbelievers, al-kuffara, and the hypocrites, al-munafiqeen, and be firm against them. Their abode is hell, an evil refuge indeed. Muhammad 47.4. Therefore, when you meet the unbelievers, alladina kafaru, smite at their necks. Can any of our audience explain the phenomenon of the Western media, totally ignoring all heinous acts of violence by Islamists, inflicted almost daily against Christians, Hindus, animists, Baha'is, Zoroastrians, etc., all over the globe, yet are blindly but vocally supporting the very Islamic aggressors if and when Jews, Christians, and others act in self-defense? Where is the logic, morality, or justice in our media that they are actually helping Ummat Muhammad, the enemies of 80% of humanity of Ummat al-Kuffar, against their very own freedoms? Where in any Muslim country can they find any freedom of the press, of political diversity, or of religious beliefs?